We are solving quadratics by factoring today. So we're still looking for the zeros, but instead of graphing and trying to figure them out that way, we are going to do it by factoring and figuring out the answer. So we have k squared minus 32k equals 0. So the first thing that you're going to want to do is just ignore the equals 0 part right now. As long as they're set up to equal 0, we are good to go. We don't have to do anything else with that. So we're going to kind of pretend it's not there for right now. Then we're going to look at k squared and negative 32k. Both of them include a k, so I'm going to take that k out. And then after I take a k out of k squared, I would have 1k left. And then I take a k out of the negative 32k, I would just have that minus 32 left. So now we're going to break that up into two pieces and set each piece equal to 0. So the first set is just that k out front. So set it equal to 0. So k equals 0. Well, there's one of our answers already. Then we're going to take the second set at k minus 32 and set it equal to 0. And then we have to solve. So I'm going to add 32 to both sides. So k would equal 32. So we have two answers here, or two zeros here. Our graph of this would cross the x-axis at 0 and also at 32. Then we have m squared minus 4m plus 3. Again, it's set equal to 0, so we're going to kind of pretend that 0 is not there for a second. And you will notice that this is in the form of x squared plus bx plus c. So we're going to have to guess and check what can we multiply together to get the c value of 3 that adds together to get the negative 4 value of b. So factors of 3 would be 1 and 3. And I want them to add together to be a negative. So in order to multiply to be a positive and add to be a negative, they're both going to have to be negatives. And if I add negative 1 and negative 3 together, I would get negative 4. So remember, we would write our answer as m minus 1 and m minus 3. Then we're going to take each one of those and set them equal to 0. So m minus 1 equals 0. And m minus 3 equals 0. And then we have to solve each one of those. So we're going to add 1 to both sides on the first one, and we're going to add 3 to both sides on the second one. So we end up with m equals 1 and m equals 3. So this parabola crosses the x-axis at 1 and 3. And then for our last example here, this is in the form of ax squared plus bx plus c. So this is where I have to make the columns. And factors of a, which is 4, go in the first column. Factors of c, which is negative 9, go in the middle column. And then our inside plus our outside products will give us that negative 9 for the b value. So factors of 4, we could do 2 and 2. And factors of 9, we are going to try 1 and 9. And if I want to have a negative multiply together to be a negative, I'm going to have to pick one of these to be a negative. So then our outside, we would have 2 and negative 9, and I would get negative 18 if I multiplied those together. And then in the middle, the inside, 2 times 1, would give us 2, so that would add together to be negative 16. So I could maybe do 1 and 4 and 3 and 3. And one of those 3's is going to have to be a negative. And I'm kind of looking ahead here, and I notice that I'm going to have to do 4 times 3, and then I'm going to have to do 1 times 3. And since I want a negative number left over, I want the bigger product to be negative. So I'm going to put the negative sign with the inside 3 here. Oops. So my outside 2 terms, 1 times 3 would give me 3. And my inside 2 terms would give me 4 times negative 3 would be negative 12. So 3 minus 12 would be negative 9. So now, remember we have to write our answer as a parenthesis. Our first terms, 1 and 4, are our x values, so 1x and 4x. And then we have negative 3 and a positive 3 in the column, in the middle column. So now we have to take each set of parentheses and set them equal to 0. So I have x minus 3 equals 0, and I have 4x plus 3 equals 0. So for the first one here, we're going to add 3 to both sides. So I'd be left with x on this side, and then 0 plus 3 would be 3. And then over here, we're going to minus 3 from both sides. So I'd be left with 4x, and 0 minus 3 would be negative 3. And then I'm going to have to divide everything by 4. So I would be left with x. And then negative 3 divided by 4 would just be negative 3/4. So again, I have 2 answers. 3 and negative 3/4 is where this parabola would cross the x-axis at.